Rory Fellows was a young man of 21 years old, whose father had called him into his office to talk to him. Once Rory was sitting comfortably in an armchair in his dad's office, he told him about how the men in their family had the ability to travel through time. Specifically, they could travel back in time, not to the future. They could only travel back in time to different points in their own lifetime. They couldn't go back and kill that evil bastard who caused the war, as he put it. Rory had trouble believing him, thinking he was trying to trick him, despite his insistence that it was true. Rory, supposing that this was true, which it isn't, obviously, how does it work? First of all, son, it is true, and it's very simple. You just go into a dark, enclosed space like a wardrobe, close your eyes and clench your fists while visualizing which point you wish to revisit. When you open your eyes and unclench your fists and exit the dark, enclosed space, you will be back at your chosen point in time. Thinking his dad was still having him, he told him he'd be in lots of trouble when he returned from being in a cupboard, with his eyes closed and fists clenched, and went to hide in his wardrobe, closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and thought hard about which point in his life he wanted to revisit. He felt a strange sensation and heard strange noises in his ears. Once it had all stopped, he opened his eyes, unclenched his fists, and opened the wardrobe door to hear party music and cheerful laughter downstairs, and closed the door. Rory, oh my God, he thought to himself as he left the wardrobe and went to see what was being celebrated. It was New Year's Eve the previous year, and he felt like he shouldn't be there, but then remembered that he was now himself at that party. When he returned to his own time, he returned to his dad's office and was warned to be careful what he used his new ability for. He decided to use it to help people, which he was commended for. The next week, he left home for London, where he was going to start a career as a lawyer, and live with one of his dad's friends who happened to be a playwright. While there, he made a few mistakes which he used his time-traveling ability to go back and fix them all. One day he was out shopping at a department store when he found himself down in the basement instead of the ground floor. This was a mistake. He looked around to check he was alone, closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and thought of himself walking through the alley behind the store just before he entered. He opened his eyes to find himself in the alleyway just before he entered the department store and carried on walking until he reached the store entrance and entered to start his shopping all over again. This time he finished his shopping and managed not to make the mistake of going to the basement again. He left the store and went on his way. He was getting used to his time travel ability and needed to be very careful how he used it. That evening he was out for a walk when he got caught in a thunderstorm, and nobody else was out because it was too dark and wet. He ran under cover in an underpass where it was dark, so he tried to use his time travel ability to go back before he went out and decide not to go out. As he closed his eyes, clenched his fists, and visualized his chosen destination, the alley was struck by lightning, causing his ability to go haywire. When he opened his eyes and unclenched his fists, he listened out for voices. Upon hearing the voices of some very young people, he emerged from the alley to find himself out on a sunny day. He walked around very carefully until he saw the newspaper and learned he'd been catapulted back to a school trip he went on when he was 6. This meant he needed to be extra careful, as there were 2 versions of him in the same place at the same time. Oh boy.